What I wanted to do with kind of this presentation we popped up here was like, what do you want to make today? One of the things that we try to really capture is voice of customer out in the field that's doing work, that's going through and having, you're solving problems. You're doing the work, you're hands-on. That's where the innovation is going to happen. So we spend a lot of time getting our engineers and design teams out in the field to spend time with customers, actually doing sampling and remediation work with them, with our products, and experience what's happening. And I just kind of wanted to point out a few of the acquisitions and things we've done over the years, just to give you a perspective for geotech as a whole. From 1956 on to 1970.
Power source.
Won't die, just a standard machine shop, just like any other machine shop in the US, just making tools and parts for people to make product. And then what happened in 1978 is the Clean Water Act had just passed, and it said you had to go collect samples out of wells and bring them in. And so the geologists from the Denver Federal Center with the USGS were coming into the machine shop, because at that time, really the only real approved sampling method, or something that would fit in a 2-inch well, go down a couple hundred feet, was a baler. And so they're coming in and saying, this really sucks. Because if you're purging 3 to 5 well volumes of the baler, doesn't matter if it's hot or cold or windy, it's never fun. You know that if you're using balers today. We're still sell a lot of balers, but at that time that was not the approved method, it was the only method, because none of the other technologies have been invented yet. So in 1978, we worked together with the geologists that were tired of using balers. They were coming into the machine shop, and we were together working and designing parts to make the first field portable peristaltic pump, which we're still making a version very close to it from the 1981 version, actually. And the first field portable bladder pumps we were making them back in 1978, but it really came from working together with the folks that were doing the work with the Geological Survey, saying there's got to be a better way to do this. And so that's been in the roots and DNA of our company from the very beginning, and it's kind of still holds true today. Is how are we helping people solve problems like that, and inventing products to make jobs easier out in the field. So the other stuff here, they're kind of just acquisitions. If you remember some of the older company, Oil Remediation Systems was a big one, a big, huge remediation company. They're Floor Daniel GTI. ORS kind of started, they were making oil remediation systems, but then nobody knew how to use it, so they started a consulting company called GTI. They got bought out by Floor Daniel, and then I can't remember who bought Floor Daniel and then who bought that company and the company after that, but they're probably WSP or something, I don't know. And then in 1999, we bought Keck Instruments, and they had a great geophysical offering, as well as some water level and interface probes. Marshak Pump was another bladder pump manufacturing company. We moved into this facility in 2006. It's an old Ford parts distribution plant. So I think we recycled an old building, and we're making remediation cleanup equipment now in an old Ford part plant.
That's,
Offices in Southern California and Sacramento, those came through acquisitions. We do have 8 other offices around the country to help be close to where some job sites and customers are. In 2015, we acquired Electron, a robotic, it says robotic helicopters, but it's mainly UAV, more quad, helicopter, and airplane fixed wing. So we're still doing some work related to that, but majority of the jobs, if they can be flown with a Chinese platform, they are. And then the jobs now, even more regulations are coming through where they want a US-made platform. So the helicopter and the quads we make would actually have the same base autopilot that's in a Predator drone. So it's a military grade. So that makes us pretty much like 10 to 20 times more than the Chinese drone to take pictures. So if you're just flying around taking pictures, use that stuff. We can help do mission planning, training, fly missions, but we don't do a ton of that work directly. In 2015, we had been making Aquavision's product beforehand, but we acquired the overall company and technology in 2015. Geotechnical Search we merged in, and then High Tech was a plastic extrusion company. So we make parts, even like if you go to the Rocky, it goes, we should Lowe's or Home Depot or Walmart, and you see an ADS 1 inch or 3/4 inch sprinkler pipe that you use in your yard for your sprinkler system. We're making that product here for them with their name on it. So that gives you an idea there. So we are an ISO certified company, and really it's, if you summarize it, is you document what you do and do what you document. If something happens, when it doesn't happen, you have to have corrective actions in place to ensure you get back on track as fast as possible. So that's certified paperwork. And then lean manufacturing. We have good lean manufacturing principles. Basically, we're trying to improve quality, the cycles in a batch for continuous improvement. But we try to, it's almost like there's not one idea that's going to make a huge improvement for the company. It's a lot of really small ideas that add up to make a big difference over time. So it's really a continuous improvement, elimination of waste mindset that allows us to get our production processes and hopefully a lot of our sales and customer service processes streamlined as well. So we do a lot of that documentation. And so when it would come back to an engineering or design services, one of the things that we want to talk about is just some of the things that we can and do offer is we do a mechanical and electrical design. One of the big pushes that we have is design for manufacturability. We're having not a lot of issues, but folks that are growing up in the digital age, back when you used to have to hand draw parts, it was a little different. Now you can draw something super fast on a computer, you can model it, you can put screws in places where your hand won't reach. So you got to be able to, with the design for manufacturability, you got to not only be able to build it, but you got to think of how the customer is actually going to use it. What's the serviceability of those parts? How is it designed to be serviceable in the field based on the tools that the customer will have available for them? So we do a lot of work on designs for that. We have the ability to 3D model prototype. Again, we took 3D printing out. 3D printing is fun. The best 3D printing example is across the hallway here. If you look out, there's a dog, a larger dog on the floor. We photo scanned that dog, created an image file, and then we 3D printed puppies. So you can use 3D printing, it's useful, but it's hard to get really solid, good production parts. In our industry, we're 3D parts out.
I had a 3D modeled bionic arm,
Yeah.
which is cool. It was all heck out of a little light, makes it look like a superhero. But
Yeah.
3D manufactured, it didn't have enough stress, so it broke.
Yeah.
It can take about 20 pounds.
Yeah, it's almost like the mica, it just layers off and it just doesn't have a lot of structural integrity for often how we'd see it. It's great for design and innovation and fun, but anyhow, not to knock 3D printers if that's your gig, but we do have them. We can use them if you want to send us a file. We can print whatever you want, even a little puppy. So we help on material selection, tooling design, process step creation. A lot of the lean manufacturing is how it's easy to make something one time, but to make 1,000 things, the next 999 the same way, that's the hard part, right? It's easy to make one thing once that works. Hey, I got it, I made it. But how do you then pass it on from an inventor to someone that's making a production that can make it the same way every time? It's a different challenge, right? Sometimes you invent it, you make it, great. Well, you can make it, but if nobody else can, it's not easy to commercialize that. We put in quality control guidelines in place. So the other part on the manufacturing fulfillment, we have full machine shop with mills and lathes. We have precision welding, laser engraving, cutting, PCB assembly and testing, plastic extrusion, injection molding, and we do full assembly, stocking, and order fulfillment as well. And so that we have the ability to offer those services for anybody with any product or idea. We can help out on a component part level. Sometimes we just make parts, send people that part. A lot of people here in the industry, we end up supplying different component parts to them. Sometimes they'll have us assemble the entire product for them. So anyhow, you're here, so I could talk to you about this, or I would encourage you on the lunch or happy hour or in the morning to get a chance to walk around and get the tour. So I won't spend. Yeah. At least he's happy. Wanted to go through, give you some examples, some stories that you see us manufacturing and selling that you may not know that product actually originated with a customer trying to solve a problem in the field. So I'll just tell you really quick on the story. This is Mike Klein here. This is the original solar sipper he developed. So it's a hydrocarbon recovery pump, which we then ruggedized, commercialized it. He was making them and put them in for the NSF on the railroads with the diesel refilling stations. And so we'd make these things. He was making it out of just going to Home Depot and making this stuff together. And he'd work, but then he was the only guy who could repair them. He's the only guy who could service them because he knew where everything was. But we worked with him to create a full product line. It's one of our top sellers globally right now. Mike since passed away, but we still pay a royalty to his estate and his grandkids that are making some money off of that idea that he created and helped us commercialize. And now we have, between just one little solar power that could run and remove product out of one well, we have systems where you could remediate out of 8 wells, cycling at a time. Sipper is kind of a good name because it helps remind everybody that you can only remediate as fast as your wells recharge, and they don't really recharge that fast. So even if you initially pump really fast out of it, you just break that recharge and hydraulic conductivity coming into the well, and you kind of mess stuff up. So if you just pump at just below your recharge rate, you're able to just continually drop product out of that well. So, you know, it's been a great story, great product for us, and something neat where we're able to continue to have funding for his family and his next generations to come. The zip liner. Oh wow, I don't know. Oh wow, slide in photos. That's great. I'll slide them all in. The zip liner. Has anybody heard or seen or used the zip liner? So essentially, it's a soil sampling liner. Everybody's familiar with soil sampling liners. So essentially, we're taking the standard GeoProbe or Animas soil sampling liners. We're instead of extruding the circle, there's a tab in there, and similar to a sardine can is you can just peel that open. So for the soil sampling for Arcadis actually invented, filed for patents, and owns the intellectual property on that. And so for each of them that we sell, we have a agreement to do the contract manufacturing. We pay a royalty to Arcadis for every unit that's sold. And the driver for them was that they, on their Chevron and Exxon sites where they were doing sampling, is they wanted no cutting instruments on site. And so we eliminated the need for a knife to do soil sampling. So it was a great fit for us. It helped with sampling. It also helped make jobs safer. It's a little tougher on market adoption because people are so used to cutting. We found that it's not the end goal of all the way eliminating a knife, but you can still open it in that slot and have a path where you could cut it open. It's still a lot safer to cut in that notch than it would be to cut through the full liner material. So even if you did use a knife, it's still safer to open it with this type of liner than a traditional liner. So that's where we work together with Arcadis to get a product to market. And this next one is Moment. So they originally designed this in our UAV work. They were looking at winds aloft, and so they would want to fly an anemometer with no moving parts up on a drone, and then fly around and collect wind speed data at altitude. And so then we've since worked with them where now that they came up with a new sphere, and so that sphere in the next generation of product will capture and collect not just a horizontal wind, but a vertical wind speed where it's going to capture and collect that in any direction. So it's pretty cool to be about that product. So once again, fits in. We're putting these on use them as weather stations. We're incorporating them in control panels on remediation sites where we do it'll do velocity and relative humidity, and you can have them out on site to know what's the weather on site with no moving parts and super small footprint. You see the quarter up there for a reference point. Hey, this look familiar, Mitchell? So Mitchell with Field Environmental was here, and what was funny is, we'll get into it a little bit later, I'll touch on it now, is there was an SOP or a standard written to do a sediment trap to deploy it. As you can see here, you can see some of the part in the field. The paper was from 2003, but it really looks like the photos from like 1976 or something. I don't know if it's Cleveland Browns fan or what, but the output looks a little more dated than 2003. But this is an example where there was an SOP written, a method that could be used to collect a sample in a river or a lake. And at the end of the SOP, it just had a laundry list of parts and instructions of how you could DIY and make it yourself. So we worked together with Mitch and the contract that they had, and we were able to use these extruded tubes and this one, machine the top and the bottom, and have a product for sale. So sometimes there's a method out there, but by the time you go and build it, it takes so many billable hours to go collect all the parts and do the project, that we're able to have just something available off the shelf that they can use to go solve the problem, right? The next example here, I've got the FieldSink, and Matt's, did Matt come in? I don't see Matt. Matt's still talking to people. Matt has a booth there with an active FieldSink. I brought one here we can take a look at. He's pretty humble, that's why, I was gonna tease him. If he walks in, we'll still tease him. But he's kind of walking away. He's sampled, like many of you have, thousands and thousands of wells and sat on buckets for thousands and thousands of hours. So this was Matt's idea and invention, and machined the prototypes and came up with it where, he's even got the translucent graduated bucket that we've been able to coordinate with him, and then all the molded parts to make that FieldSink. So he's put his heart and soul into every little design, even the little splash guard that doesn't get any splash back out of the field. You've got the drain tray that's designed with the angles so that the water's not going to splash back up at you as it goes into the bucket. And then here's Matt, so we're teasing just in time on his mention. So we're able to help Matt get this from his idea prototype stage, work with them to make the molds and then shoot the molds for him. But Matt, I don't know if you wanted to comment on what it took for you to kind of dream this thing up, and then what, if any, role we played in helping you get it to market for sale.
So Jeff was, he probably explained, I don't know if he gave my background or not.
No, I didn't. I let you do that.
Okay, so my full-time job, I'm chasing after a dream, and Jeff is nice enough to take me on in this journey. But I went after the patent a few years ago. Actually, my full-time job right now, I'm a program manager with the Navy, a compliance program manager. This has nothing to do with the Navy. This is like nights and weekends, entrepreneurship. My wife ready to kill me. But I've been with the Navy for 13 years. Prior to that, I had 10 years, 12 years private consulting. Very hands-on, me tripping over buckets and tubing, and just I remember as a kid right out of college doing it, thinking, man, it's got to be a better way. Go, get the work done, But you're sitting in a parking lot full of wells, sitting on a cooler. There's got to be a better way. My first day on the job, I got back. I won't mention names for contractors, but big contractor. I saw what we were paying them. I reviewed their sample and analysis plan. And when I got out there, I was expecting kind of some version of what I was thinking in my head based on, again, what we were paying them and what the expectations were. But nope, the same old thing, just an old 5-gallon Home Depot bucket with a tube jammed in it with a clamp on top, right? And I went back to my wife thinking, man, there's a better way. I know there is. So it wasn't until recently, I'm sure you guys are all aware of the PFAS situation, what's going on, and measured down to parts per trillion. And I kind of went back to the drawing board on this, and I was so hyper focused in on like the efficiency, bringing up your hands. being able to secure the sampling site to be able to walk away to deal with multiple sampling, locations. But what was really missing was the quality control piece. So the fact that we're taking the tube that's directly connected to the pump and sticking it into a 5-gallon bucket. Because for PFAS, for me reviewing sampling analysis plans, the list, the checklist that you're given, they got to check off, the contractors check off, maybe some of you do this, but you have to show that you've washed your clothes at least 6 times, no blue ice. For a while it was no Sharpie, now they allow Sharpie, no Gore-Tex, no bug spray, no lotions. And by the time I was done looking at that list, I'm like, well, shoot, if you're that worried about cross-contamination from the individual to the sample, then how in the world would you be okay still with sticking the sample collection end of your tube into a bucket, right? And those buckets, I mean, you tend to get quite a bit of longevity out of a 5-gallon bucket. So even if you're buying a new bucket, and I know you work kind of from, from the cleanest that on site to the dirtiest is usually how we approach it. But still, those buckets end up making it in the back of a pickup truck and you're right to the next site, right? So now you're carrying all of your purge water waste in that bucket, on drums, so you can characterize that to ship it off. And you're using that same bucket wherever you go, and that sample collection of the tube, you're sticking in that bucket still. And there's a bunch of different ways people do it. I mean, I've done it every which way, from twisty ties on the handle to clamps to binder clips, right? And people get pretty creative. So I was just trying to figure a way, and I kind of, synced up with Jeff on it. How do we create something that's still simple to use, and it's going to be durable enough? And the material that, I don't know if you want to the material, but it's virgin HDPE is what we end up using. Because I was looking at, what's out there that would be kind of neutral across the board that would be okay for pretty much every sampling application, and HDPE was definitely the way to go. So Jeff took me under his wing, because for me, I know the technical side of it. I've been sampling all my life, but you start getting into, Jeff wasn't involved in the patent process, but that alone was its own science, right? And then you jump into the design piece of it, that was its own science, and then manufacturability and distribution and all that were all brand new to me, right? So, I mean, Jeff is just an absolute wizard with that stuff, and just, he took me under his wing, and here we are today. So we're being made out back and being shipped to whoever wants them, so.
That's great.
But I invite you, I have my table out here, I can give you a full hands-on demonstration if you want to take a look at it.
Cool, thanks,
Yeah,
thanks for that overview, and it's just good to see, you have an example here with Mitch bringing this product to the table, with Matt, and we talked about it. Innovation's not happening in our factory, in our plant. We got to go out to where the work's happening, and that's where the innovation and ideas are coming from. And really, just anybody in the room or anybody out there sampling a well could be coming up with a better way to get better data. And so, thanks for coming out and thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do stop by the booth, check it out. It's a cool way, and I think not just Matt, in that spout, as you see it going around, it has the ability to snap in 3 different sizes of tubing, so you can snap in 170 by quarter. That'd be used often with a peristaltic pump size tubing. Then you got the 3/8, which is a lot of bladder pump size tubing, then 3/8 by half, which would be your kind of deeper electrical submersible pump tubes. So Matt thought of everything on this. Like, he had the bad idea. I'm like, I don't know. He thought of everything. I mean, you've got little notches to hold your BOA vials and a place to keep your Leatherman tool. I mean, there's just, you tell you thought this through thoroughly, and we're just glad to be a part of helping it get to the market. So what that would be, kind of with that as an example to show you how it could work, and that illustration, just wanted to show you a little bit about kind of what we're looking for if we're going to do it. We're pretty transparent and honest. I think you get that coming through here, meeting with everybody and taking a tour. Is it a fit for us or not? Because if it's not a fit, we're going to be honest. If it's something that we think could be made, it's just not us who can make it. We can help identify another manufacturer to point you in that direction where it'd be a better fit for that type of company. One of the big things for us is is the company person easy to work with. We don't have to work with everybody. We're not a contract manufacturing firm where that's all that we do. So if it's got to be a good fit. And we're an example. We're going to be really careful with it. Where we thought we had a really good fit, and then we thought we'd be working with one person. Like, as soon as we start working together, we're like, okay, here's your new contact. We're like, whoa, we'd have never started working together if we know this. So that's more on us. We gotta make sure, someone it's cool to work with. And then that goes back and forth, because when you're collaborating on stuff, you're really partners getting a product developed into the market. So we got to be careful. I got to remind myself, I got to put it there. I got to be really careful. So you don't, we try not to get too excited. And does the product fit in our core values? And what I put, you know, we could read them online, but is it protecting the environment? Is it making jobs safer? That's really the type of opportunities we're after. In theory, we make stuff. We could kind of make almost anything. But that's where we try to look for the opportunities, you know, but we'll make parts for windmill blades and we make parts for beer tubing, but you know, beer's delicious. So that kind of fits somehow, right? You got to have a little fun. But as an example, we make a company called Cape Co, beverage factory, and they brand it as Cape Co. We'll make an entire container, shipping container full of beer tubing. It'll ship to San Diego. It'll go on a container ship to China. It goes into China, gets put into the Danby keg refrigerators, and it gets shipped back to the United States. And so if you go to a Costco warehouse in the United States to get a keg refrigerator, that tubing that's labeled in there was made in our plant and went all the way around the world to come back, just because they want to be sure that it was FDA rated, it was all virgin clean materials made to a standard, and if it's too risky for them to buy it in China. I don't know why, but they think they might cut the recipe or do something to make it right, but they had to have that USDA certified tubing to be able to go around it. So it's just an interesting story where you go and you think about how complicated the supply chain is, and we're shipping tubing all the way around the world. It doesn't necessarily make sense. So the due diligence, and this gets to be a little bit tricky for us, is it's really easy as you have an idea and you come up with something and you're talking to people about it, you're talking to your friends, your family, you're talking to coworkers and people you know, and everybody tells you it's a great idea. It's totally different from someone socially telling you that's a great idea conversationally, and I'll pay you actual money for that. I'm going to actually buy that from you. And so making that stretch where gathering that feedback in a way that you've actually established there's a market price point that someone's willing to pay for that idea, that's, I think, the trickiest part, because we're really polite to each other. Hey, yeah, great idea. Knock yourself out. Good luck. Hey, you want one? Well, hey, you know, it's a good idea. No, I just don't know if it's for me. And so that's where we really try to give some pushback to make sure that someone's going to want to pay money for it. Because at the end of the day, that's the only way we can help someone make someone is if someone then actually buys it. And it's cool if we can help sell it too, because then it's a real fit for us. It's a win-win. So the next steps, just kind of in summary, thinking through is going from the idea to know if you're going to keep that as a proprietary idea. You know, Colonel Sanders didn't get a patent on his recipe for chicken. He kept the, I don't know how many herbs and spices secret, right? It's secret. So sometimes you keep something secret for know-how. Sometimes you want to patent it, and then you got to go to the process and patent. Other times you just want to be first to market, and the patent stuff doesn't matter. The hardest part, and only warning on patents is a patent only means that if you file for them getting a patent, it just means that it's a unique or novel idea. It doesn't mean it's a good idea. So the patent officers are reviewing it to say, has anybody else actually applied for a patent to do this? And so if you think about it from that perspective, it's actually easier to get a patent on a bad idea than a good idea because no one else has filed for a patent. So patents are a little bit tricky in that sense. And then will this work out in the field? A lot of times some of the stuff coming out of the national labs or the universities, it's great in a temperature controlled environment with a PhD student or doctor working in a laboratory, but can you take it out in the field and use it? So a lot of the technology we see, hey, that's great, it'll work in a lab, but you're not going to be able to do this outside in the field with varying weather conditions. And then the other thing is if there's a new way or standard, you know, is there a ASTM standard or an EPA method? Even though you have a new way to get a reading, will that reading be accepted by the people that we have to report that reading to? Or do you then have to go through a process to get that new method standardized and published? Because that could be a barrier to the technology being used or sold. It doesn't mean it's a bad idea or no-go, it just means that's a step that's got to be in the process. And then thinking through are you saving people time? Are you helping them make money? Are you helping them get better data? Where is this gonna fit amongst those three? It could be a combination of them, could be any one of them, but how are we gonna position this for sale in the marketplace? And then, do you have a story to tell? And I think the great example with Matt's thing is he's got a great story to tell. It's been awesome to help launch it because he's put in the time and when he's connecting with people and hearing how he's done it, how he tried, how he gave up with it. People are like, yeah, okay, yeah, I want to try that. I want to give that a shot. I'm tired of doing it that way. I'll try it Matt's way. He thought this through. So it's great to have a story to tell to get the market to launch anything as an innovator. So anyhow, that runs us through. I know we're pushing on the time limit they had allotted for me to speak here. But we are here at Geotech. We're on site. We're here probably for Q&A and questions following up. Just grab me. I'll be in the room the rest of the time. So if you have some ideas that are rattling around in there, get them out. Let's start talking. Thank you. Thank you.